Caregiving is everywhere, in every home, every family, and every woman's life. Yet, it is one role nobody prepares us for. Today's guest knows this reality in a way most people never will. She has cared for a husband battling cancer, a mother fighting Parkinson's for decades, while still trying to hold a career, a marriage, a family, and herself together. And through that journey, she discovered the truth we never say aloud. Caregiving doesn't just take your time, it takes your identity slowly, quietly, and invisibly. Most people only see the strength, they never see the breakdowns in the bathroom, the guilt, the isolation, and the feeling of becoming a different person just to keep everyone alive. But today, finally, we are talking about it. Natalie Elliott Handy. She is not just a caregiver, but she is a CEO and the voice of millions of women who carry entire world on their shoulders and without even being acknowledged. And in this conversation, she's opening up about the parts of caregiving we never say aloud. How women lose themselves and why burnout feel like guilt, and how to rebuild your identity when you have been carrying everyone else. This is not just an interview. This is a lifeline for every woman who has ever said, I am fine, while quietly feeling apart inside. So let's begin. So, welcome to the show, Natalie. I'm so grateful that you are here today with us to talk about something very, very important and which impacts everybody's life, like everyone. So caregiving is not only about when we see old age homes or those things. It's like mother, siblings, parents, and everyone. We see like the caregivers are everywhere. So I'm so glad that you're here today to put a light on it. And thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I'm delighted to come and share my own personal experience and those that of other caregivers. There's 63 million unpaid family caregivers per the most recent AARP study, and these are individuals that are helping to hold up the healthcare system. I think that's one of the biggest things that folks don't realize is how many of us there are, and it's so to be able to shed a light, and hopefully someone listening today will say, "Hey, I think that's me too." And
Yes.
and that's the first start to being a successful caregiver.
Very true. So before we start, can you share your story? What led you into this work? What made you so passionate about supporting caregivers?
Sure. So my background, I have a master's in social work, and I've worked in the mental health field for over 25 years, primarily working with children and families, and really helping. And I live in Virginia, and so I've worked with children and families on various levels to really help children and their families remain intact and remain in the community. And so I've always been a direct care at some level of a person who's provided direct care to people, but I was paid. And so I was paid to do this from my first job being a direct care worker with children in a residential treatment facility to running treatment facilities myself. I've always been a paid caregiver. And so it's a different shift when you become a family caregiver. And most people, as I stated, don't really recognize or self-identify as being family caregivers because we identify in the role that we are to that individual. And so when I say that, I'm a caregiver to my husband, and I have been a caregiver to my mom. But later on, even after my sister and I had started our podcast and services and training and all the stuff that we love to do, I self-identified as a youth caregiver. I didn't realize that it had started at such an early age because, again, I was a granddaughter, I was a wife, I was a daughter, I was a sister. And so I think that was the part that was pretty much very surprising to me, and for someone who trains on providing care and things like that, and especially related to mental health. And so I became I self-identified. There's two parts. I self-identified as a caregiver after my husband and I returned from him getting active treatment in New York City for head and neck cancer. And so he was diagnosed in February 2020, well, March 2023. We had the initial diagnosis in February. And we ended up going to New York to Memorial Sloan Kettering to have his treatment. He was eligible for a clinical trial. And that just threw my world upside down. It was crazy. And especially to move hundreds of miles away from your home and your family. But my husband and I made the decision of stay locally and have family support. And maybe I would say we don't have the best care. Not that they were providing poor care, but I'm talking about the most advanced care. And or do we move to New York City where they are cutting edge on how they look at treatment? And but we have no one and know no one. And so that is something for people to really consider. And so upon returning, I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And I just felt despondent. I felt depressed. I could not figure out like why I wasn't motivated. I was running a mental health company in Virginia and I had been doing it the whole time. I never took time off. And then I get back home and you would think that it would be great. My husband has quote unquote beat cancer. Like he had no cancer detected. Okay. And we should be happy. We're home. We're with our dogs. We're with our family and friends. And I just couldn't figure out how to put one foot in front of the other. And that's when I realized I was experiencing caregiver grief. And really, even if you don't put the word caregiver in front of it, the word is grief. Grief of the life that is different, grief for the life that is lost, and that our relationship was different because he was different, I was different. And that's when I talked to my sisters about it. And you'll hear me talk about my sisters because we're very, very close. And they also said they experienced those same feelings. And because we've been caregiving for our mom, who has been living with Parkinson's for over 22 years. And so my mom's had it for 22 years. My dad passed away in 2011. And so in 2011, so that makes us right now, it's 2015 or 2025, it's 14 years later. And we started supporting our mom, like typical kind of caregiving, because my dad had been my mom's primary caregiver until he passed away at 58. And then we had supported mom, but then she had this crisis in 2019 that required us to be her full-time caregivers. And so between the three of us and our Aunt Jane, we always talk about Aunt Jane. So my mom has siblings, but Aunt Jane is also a part of our kind of care team. Because she checks on my mom. She's POA alongside of my sisters and I. And that's when we really self-identified as caregivers. And from that point, we knew that we weren't the only people, but we didn't know how big this caregiving thing was. And so being a social worker, I'm very solution focused. And I'm like, we must do something. We got to tell somebody. We got to tell everybody that they're caregivers potentially, like we're telling somebody something new. And then this whole world opened up. And so the way that we were going to help people was by, and you'll love this, we were going to start a podcast because we thought, how will people listen? And when I saw it on Facebook, like, learn how to be a podcaster. And I was like, okay, I don't know how to do it. And here's the best part. When I told my sisters, they were like, well, do you know what a podcast entails? I'm like, no. And they were like, have you ever listened to one? And I'm like, no. And she said, and my other sisters were like, do you think we have to have video? And I'm like, I don't know. So I will tell you, we were the most unlikely middle-aged women who thought this is a great idea, but we really wanted to help people. And so we decided in September that we were going to start a podcast January of 2023, because Jason was diagnosed, in 2022. January 2023, we started Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver. And I'm going to tell you right now, it has completely changed the trajectory of my life and even my career.
Oh my God, this is so beautiful. You had so many griefs within you, and then you turn it into something meaningful.
Oh,
You
it's
just
perfect.
didn't want to sit in the room and just, think about it. You wanted to change. You wanted to change, wanted that change for yourself and for the world. You wanted to make people understand, see, there is caregiving is just natural. It is just normal thing. But
Yep.
again, you have support, you have us. And the transition I see, it's so beautifully you have done it in your life. And I'm so thankful to you that you have started your podcast, that at least people can go listen to you and, change their mindset and then bring that, hope in their life.
Yeah,
So
hope is the magic. If people want to know what the magic sauce is, everybody wants to know what's the thing that helps you survive and thrive with caregiving. And we've done over 160 podcast recordings with other caregivers and over since January 2023. And JJ and I, because Emily, caregiving is interesting and how it impacts us is very individualized. And Emily started with us. She's the baby sister. She's the most quiet. JJ's background is corporate finance, and Emily worked in government, but Emily was the mama of the family. She is the truest of the natural born caregivers of all three of us. And because we each have our own unique strengths, but Emily's caregiving experience compared to mine and JJ's, specifically with our mom, was very different and impacted her differently than it impacts me, than it impacts JJ. And it has its challenges. And so for Emily, she started in the podcast with us, and it became so triggering for her to hear those stories, because this is the reason it's called Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver. Is the reluctance is not based on your lack of desire to care for another person. It's really about your own insecurities, the guilt you feel. Like, am I doing good enough? I literally was talking to a friend of mine who cared for her mom for years. She lived with her. We were talking last night at my dining room table, and she said, I still feel guilt because I don't know that I did well enough for my mom. And she's telling me all these things she did. And I'm like, of course you did well enough. Of course you were good enough. Like, these are the thoughts, feelings, and emotions that people don't talk about because they feel like there's shame in it. And so for Emily, and that's why we started the podcast, but for Emily, the bringing it up over and over again had her reliving that experience and what she should have done differently or could have done differently. Emily shouldn't have done anything differently. I mean, we can all look back, and hindsight's 2020, but Emily said, this is too much for me. I love you. I'll support you. You and Jay take it. And so that's why you see the sister, we'll always be sisters. And there's always three of us with confessions, but JJ and I are the ones who primarily do the podcast and training and things like that, because it's just it's very hard. And I think I'm always going to tell people, give yourself grace and space, and how you deal with caregiving and that experience both prior to, as you're mentally planning for it, because caregiving starts either as a slow burn or it starts in a crisis. And my mom was a slow burn. My husband was a crisis, and they were completely different experiences, completely like night and day. I would have told you, oh, caregiving is not that bad. It was hard with my husband. Oh no, my caregiving experience with my husband compared to my mom is very different.
wow. So it's just all depend upon the person who is actually you're providing the care giving.
Yeah, it does. And the relationship and your past experiences with that person, that's really important,
That's
because
right.
your past experiences are going to dictate who you are.
Yeah.
From a mental health standpoint, we pull from those past experiences, our learned experience, what we've observed over years, and how do we take those experiences and make sure that we are not inadvertently putting ourselves in a place that's going to do more both physical and emotional mental harm to ourselves, because not everyone, this is important, not everyone is meant to be a caregiver. And it's like, I feel this way about foster parents. Not everybody's meant to be a foster parent. And so for some people, we always like to say, you're like recruited, you're drafted, or you're a volunteer. And all three of us related to our mom was a little bit of all those things. And that was because of our past relationship with her and how we knew those dynamics would play out. And if you know and acknowledge those dynamics up front, that also helps you with how you'll be a caregiver. You may have to self-select out, and you may say to another sibling, especially if you've got another sibling, you may say, I can do this. This is what I need to do. And because we have seen so many siblings over the years that have just stopped talking to one another because one bails out, one says, I can't do it, and the primary or the family doesn't understand. And the reality is you cannot expect your family to care for you. You cannot expect that. And I know that's a hard thing to hear, depending on culturally. We've seen so many people that it is absolutely built into the culture. You would not think of doing anything different. Then you have other folks that, because of past trauma, they're like, I can't go open into that door. But I
Yeah.
also know other people who have had terrible trauma with the person and they go back and care for them. And it is has either been a healing or experience, both for them and the person, or it's
Right.
just simply healing for them. And that
Mm.
it allowed them to come to a resolution for themselves to say, there are things I need to let go. There are things that I need to resolve. And even if that person who you're caring for, there's where conflict is, they may not resolve it with themselves, but you have to resolve it within yourself. So caregiving gives you lots of opportunities to go in lots of different directions.
Right. And it's also depend upon how the person respond to the caregiver.
100%.
Yeah, that's one of the aspect as well, because you try to help, but then if the person has that feeling that no, you are doing too much of care and I do not need it, because it sometimes hits self-esteem as well.
Oh, sure. My mom was that way. My mom fought us for when dad passed in 2011, she fought us in she wanted her independence. We were her daughters, know our role, and we did not know, like our parents did not talk about the will. They did not talk about financial planning. You do not do that. We're good Southerners. And so you just don't talk about that because it's impolite. Now you may talk about your neighbor, but you ain't
Mm.
talking about your money. And
Right.
you're not talking about your wishes. And so for us, that made it very challenging to be able to support my mom. And she had
Mm.
been so independent for so long. And then, so that lasted 8 years, 8 years before we finally had to step in and say, no, we can't do this anymore. You've had a medical issue because you can't care for yourself. And that you have to have a level of empathy for that person and the
Yes.
loss of independence. You have
Huh.
to demonstrate and make sure that they still feel dignity and experience dignity because they're a human being. If you think about it, we
Mm.
work all the way through our childhood to get our driver's license, and then we get a job, and we've got houses, and we have all these things. And if
Mm.
you think about this, and this is the depressing side of it, if you really think this is why people don't talk about death and dying, and they don't talk about aging, because you work for all these things, experiences, that sort of thing. And then what you realize is that as you age and as you get older, our system is not set up to allow you to be financially viable. And the way that you ultimately, at times, unless you are well to do right
Yeah.
up front,
Mm-hmm.
the working poor become poorer as they age in order to get the services they need. And so my mom, I look at what my parents had and how much they worked and all the things they had. And my mom is now a dual. So when I say a dual, she's Medicaid and Medicare. And so she's only allowed to make so much money. And so she lives off of $50 a month, is what she is able to have. And she's in a skilled nursing facility at age 71. And so my sisters and I supplement as much as we can. This is very common for caregivers to supplement financially and to make sure she has what she needs. And
Right.
I know people may be saying, why is she in skilled nursing? Why isn't she living with you?
Mm.
That is an individual decision for families. And I learned a long time ago, you cannot, it needs to be a judgment-free zone because
Yeah.
you don't know the story and what's going on behind closed doors. And my mom is in stage Parkinson's, and there's just not enough caregivers, paid
Mm.
caregivers, supports in the community because we tried it. And that's the thing is you don't know what this person's going through and the family choices that are made because it is so easy to stand on the outside and be like, oh, I would never
Yes.
do that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
promises
Definitely.
and
No.
say, you'll never go into skilled nursing. You can't make those promises. You never know what life's going to throw at you.
No, this is a very important point you highlighted, because I have heard myself, like the eastern part of the world, they, without even thinking, they just judge. The judgment is such that, oh, they just send their parents to the nursing home.
Yeah,
To
to
the,
where they go to die. It's like putting the cattle
yeah,
out to pasture.
yeah, but then you never know what is going on, the level of care the person need. Maybe you're not able to do it at home.
No,
So this is something which everybody should acknowledge, that every home is different, everybody's life is different, and the requirements are different. And this
100%.
and even the caregivers are going through something, a little bit of understanding and not judging at that point of time can give so much strength to the person.
because
Yes.
they are dealing with so much stuff in their heart that these judgments, if it's not there, if outer noise is not there, it's actually going to help them at least 1%. So yeah, it's important. This point is very, very important to consider for everyone.
Well,
So
and I'll say this, just because your loved one may be in a congregate setting, so whether it's assisted living or independent living or skilled nursing or rehab, doesn't mean the caregiver's responsibility goes away. It just changes.
yes,
And I will tell
just
you, we get just as many phone calls every
mhm.
day as when my mom from the skilled nursing facility as my mom was when she was in the home. And for us, it is a different level of hard with my mom being in skilled nursing because we have to advocate. We have to find the fine line of advocacy for my mom because I know I used to run like secure treatment facilities for adolescents, but I understand regulations and I understand national accreditations. And so there are things, in my opinion, that are not being operationalized per code and per regulation by law. But if we say too much, if we push too much, they
Mm,
will say we can't serve your mom. And the
yeah.
result of that will be she has to go, the next closest facility who can manage her is over 2 hours away, which means her sisters and her brother does not get to come see her. We have someone that sees her every day. And our extended family, because the facility that we chose was not our top five at all, but they were who accepted her. But the biggest reason that we chose this facility was because it was in our mom's hometown, where all of our family and everybody knows everybody. I mean, even the nursing staff is related to us kind of partially. And so the best way I'm going to tell you, if you have a loved one who is in an out-of-home setting, like a skilled nursing or assisted living, is think about all the pieces. Just because somewhere looks really nice, it could be 2 hours away from family members. So looks are only going to get you so far. It is the ability to have relationship and connection and have a line of sight and eyes on that person, and having multiple people see it is a way to keep people safe when they are not living with you.
I can definitely say your mom is so lucky to have you as a daughter and have a lovely extended family. That's
Yeah,
great.
well, I will tell you, I give all the credit. My oldest sister, JJ, is the lead. She has always been in charge. So I always like to joke, you can tell she's older, but it's because she's bossy. And I am very opinionated, but JJ was always in charge growing up. And this is a caregiving typically leans into the oldest or the youngest. It is
Yeah.
not as common for the middle to be in there. And especially culturally, typically the oldest daughter. And then some of the folks we've talked to, if it's a son that's first, it is the wife of the son. It is the wife of the oldest son who helps with it.
Yes.
Culturally, that's the part that's always been so interesting to us, is how does culture come into care? And
Mm,
but it doesn't guarantee anything. Just because you're caring for someone doesn't mean that it may be that they have bias, and there are things that they're doing that they don't even realize that are doing, or that it's impacting them.
mm,
So I think, I'll say this, JJ was always in charge. Emily and I always fall in line typically with what Jay's recommendations are. She's in Tennessee right now with my mom at a medical appointment. And so we both live out of state. Even though my youngest sister's in Tennessee, JJ's in charge. And so JJ's in charge of all things like that medical piece of getting her, making sure she has the medical device that she needs, making sure, talking to the facility. And then I am what we like to refer to as the Kraken, like where they're all like, release the Kraken. So
mhm.
I am the person who does all things healthcare. I deal with the health plan. I deal with the facilities as far as if there's concerns. I make sure I'm the big mouth advocate, and because that's my strength area. And then
Yeah.
Emily is the baby. She's the one that is the nurturing person. She's the one that comes in if my mom wants lotion on her feet, that she's going to do that. And JJ and I are like, we'd prefer not to do that. Emily's got that. So everybody, for us, we all have our role, but we have all committed to one another that we will be in agreement, even when we're not. We are in agreement in the decision for mom and live with those decisions, even if one of us are not. And it's nice. I mean, God knew that we needed three daughters. That way we've got an odd number, like it's 2 against 3. And so, and I don't want to imply that my mom doesn't have a choice, but mom, we know what mom would want as well. But we're, as daughters, we are charged with making sure she is properly cared for.
No, this is the very, very good point you highlighted, that if we have two or three siblings and if the role is allotted, or not the siblings or anyone at a home who is trying to figure things out for a person as a caregiver. So if the roles are allotted and they're working in a sync to just have they have a the final goal is to provide the best care possible. So
Yes.
roles are allotted, goals are final. I think in itself, this makes a life really easier because you have to deal with this every day.
Yes.
So this actually going to help instead of bringing a lot of chaos. That, oh, whether you have done this or not, whether you have finished this or not, whether you have applied here or not. So this is going to actually this is a game changer, I can say. Allotment
Yeah.
of roles, yeah.
It is, and giving yourself permission to tag out. So if you saw our post and our we have our own little text group. Honestly, it should be a book one day. It's so funny. It's nothing but memes and comments and about like what's going on and oh my gosh, and then you mix in life with it. But there are times when you need to tag out. Like mommy
Right.
called JJ 14 times in 1 hour because JJ was in a meeting and mom wanted JJ. JJ, because she knows JJ's name. JJ. And she
Yeah.
didn't call me early. And JJ's like, Mom is blowing up my phone. You all need to take this. And I'm like, I got it. Or Emily says, I've got it. Yeah, my
Mm.
mom had run out of Cokes and Little Debbie's, but she needed JJ to order it from Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And so just understand there are going to be things in your care journey that you're like, oh, I'm going to help with medical and I'm going to make sure the bills are paid. I'm going to make sure everything's fine and everybody's well. And then you're like, wait, what? You're calling me because you're out of Cokes and that couldn't wait until I see you later? Or what do you mean we're buying 50 Little Debbie's for Christmas presents for everybody in the nursing facility and you ate half of them? And so that ain't giving away Christmas presents, Connie. And so, there are so many things that you're like, you can't even make this up. You can't
Yeah.
make it up. And you'll laugh. And I think we are always going to say laughter is the best medicine. In the moment, you will want to cry. There were
Yeah.
moments that you will want to cry, go ahead and do it. And then
Mm.
there are moments that you're just going to laugh and be like, no, that is just straight up funny. Because most of the stuff that is like, I mean, we laugh at the situation with our mom. We've been full-time caregivers for mom now for 6 years. And the average time for caregiving, a minimum is 5 years. And so we're crossing over and we're like, I don't even know where the time's going, but all I know is it's like a dumpster fire. Like
Yeah.
what's next? And so there's little things and as a long-term caregiver versus someone who has an illness and it's a quick turn and it doesn't feel fair. And
Yeah.
that was my parents. My dad dropped dead of a heart attack at 58. There was no goodbye. And then my mom has had this now. This is now 22 years she's been living with this. And so
Wow.
it's so markedly different. And so the grief process for both of those are again different.
Mm.
We grieve, like JJ's in right now, and she had this idea like, we're going to go to the Cracker Barrel and I'm going to take mom to eat. We're going to go and get her some clothes. And that way because we always buy our new clothes every quarter or every 3 months because, well, the facility loses half of them. And so we just resigned to it. We're like, okay, we're going to go ahead and just keep going. And that's hard because if you look at our post on confessions just yesterday, which is
Mhm.
today's the 20th of November. So if you go back and look at November 19th on confessions, you'll see a picture of JJ and she talks about how she's laying in the skilled nursing facility hospital bed, looking up at the ceiling, considering her life options. And like it's National Family Caregivers Month. And so she did this really super authentic post of, I was going to do these things and mom can't do it. My mom just physically couldn't do it. And that disappointment, like we were super tight with our mom growing up, we vacationed together and all the things. So part of the grief that you don't expect is the things that you thought you'd be doing at this age. The things you thought that you want to do. I want to take my mom out to dinner, but she can't. And she can't. And it's not because we don't want to take her. It's because
Mm.
physically it just impacts her such a negative way. And so we
Mm.
have to be okay with the new normal.
Yeah. The acceptance is very important.
Oh, it is radical acceptance. Sue Ryan talks about that. Her husband had dementia, and she talks about radical acceptance of what is and what is right now, and not having to look back and be like, it was supposed to be this way. And the answer is you will experience more happiness if you can
Yes,
accept where you are right now and
true.
find the joy in the time spent now.
Mm, yeah. No, truly, it's very important that we accept and acknowledge what's going on and how we can make it the best. Yeah, beautifully explained, Natalie. It's such with such clarity, and I can see that how you and your family are. I think this is actually bringing a bigger bonding between the family as well. The way you all are collaborating, working together, and then trying to see what's best, and it's so motivating and so inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing all these beautiful stories with us.
Yeah, no, I'm
Yeah.
happy to. I will say, I'm always going to give you a caveat. My sisters and I disagree. There are times that we've gotten into arguments about it, but we are very committed to one another.
Yeah.
And I think that's something, it's not even as much, oh, we're committed to our mom and doing this. Of course we are, but we're committed to our relationship with one another. And we're
Yes.
not willing to let a disagreement
Yeah.
derail our relationship for a long
Yeah.
term.
Yeah. You
Because
don't want to compromise your relationship.
no, and at some point you never know when one will not be there. And is
Right.
this the hill you're going to die? Is this the hill you're going to die on? And the answer is no. It's never worth it. It's
Mm.
never worth the relationship. So if you've got a sibling, if I had one of my siblings who said, I cannot do this at all,
Mm.
and before my experience, I would have been like, I don't understand. Just do your part. And
Right.
having lived it and done it now, I would say, can you do this? What are the things you can do to help? And that's how we support one another. What are the things that you can do that keeps you sane and keeps you okay? Because people are in different places. At one point, Emily had children. JJ and I don't have children. But JJ is a business owner where I previously worked for a corporate company. So JJ had flexibility in her schedule, and then there were times I'd have flexibility, or Emily could do things, but then couldn't do things because of the children. We
Mm.
have to give each other grace and
Yeah.
understanding, and knowing that there will be times that one person does the lion's share, and it is the obligation of the others to say, what can I do to lift off burden? Even if that's just being an ear for you to completely complain, and
Mm.
that be okay.
Yeah, that's completely human because
Mhm.
yeah, you have a life. You're definitely a caregiver, but at the same time, you have your own life as well. You have to understand yourself. You have to understand the people who is related to you. So those things needs to be considered. And I think because when we start considering all of these things together, that's when we actually enjoy the balance in the life. Otherwise it's like we start to have that burnout, those
Yeah.
feelings of burnout is I think that's the biggest thing I think caregivers experience in their life, because they won't be able to balance things and they go too much into just caregiving and not taking care of this part that they need to take care. Do you want to shed a little bit of light over here?
I think I'm gonna say don't let good be the enemy of perfect. And that's one thing I'm gonna say over and over again. I am a perfectionist, and I saw that more than anything when I was caregiving for my husband. Not as much my mother, because I had two other people that we could bounce ideas off, and that's a different dynamic. My husband and I don't have children, and he has two brothers who are look to me, and I'm the one that manages my husband, and literally, and then he manages me back. And I'll say this, it was very hard to be, and it changed our relationship. So I talk about the relationship with like my sisters and my mom, but when my husband was sick, it shifted my role. And so right now, still a caregiver, although he does not identify me as a caregiver. He doesn't want me as a caregiver because
Mm,
this is also him. He doesn't
mm,
want to feel like he needs someone else because of his past experiences. And he grew up as the primary male role model in his home because dad had left the scene. And so he was in charge. And so when you have to think about how people, their past experiences and how they're going to potentially respond. And so for it, I've talked about this very candidly. After we got back, I mean, I treated him like he was one of my cases at work. I'm like, I'm case managing everything that's going on. and I was sitting in one of, he was getting hydration as part of his chemotherapy so his kidneys wouldn't be destroyed. And so he's getting fluids. And I'm sitting there and I just start writing down, like, I do this, I do this. And I realized I had 40 different titles, job responsibilities. Because I started thinking about like all the things that I do. And then wife was not on there. And so I will tell you, listeners who are caregivers for your spouse, it is very easy to lose that role. It is very easy for care to come forward, and your spouse role that you self-identify as to really kind of dissipate and disappear like a wallflower. And so for us, it took close to 9 months to a year for me to feel like a wife again, because I was so checking on him all the time. Have you taken your medicine? Have you eaten the way you need to? Why are you not getting enough sleep? I mean, I swear to you, I sounded like his mother. And I was like, and I didn't want that. I was so angry. So hear me say this. I did not want that. I didn't want to care for him because I didn't want him to have cancer.
Yes.
He didn't want cancer. And so we both aggressively agreed what we didn't want. We did not want cancer, and we didn't want to be in these roles because the dynamics shift. And that's the same way with our mom. The dynamics shift. So when an adult child starts caring for their parent, it completely shifts and it throws off everything off its axis. And so I can remember hearing my mom be like, "You can't tell me what to do. You're my child." Well, I guarantee you I can right now, because you're making poor decisions and you have a safety risk, and safety always comes first. And so if you can't make safe choices, you're looking at who's making the safe choices. And so I'm very blunt with my mom, whereas the sisters are softer around the edges. And with my husband the same way. Don't talk to me like I'm one of the clients. Don't act like it. Like, I'm like, I need you to do the things. And when he didn't want to eat, I forced him to eat. He had to eat, because we knew, because he had head and neck cancer and he's getting his head radiated. The way that people who have head and neck cancers, the negative thing that can happen to them is they pass because of malnutrition, because they're getting their throat radiated and their head radiated. And so it's like swallowing glass. And typically other places will put in feeding tubes, but if you lose your ability to swallow, it's very hard to relearn that, because that's a part of your autonomic nervous system. And so I'm like, MSK was like, "We'll manage your pain." And I'm like, "You're eating." And so the interesting part was that he didn't lose the majority. He lost about 50 pounds. But he didn't lose the majority of the weight until after he came home. And it was just, he was depressed. Nothing tasted the same. And today things still don't taste the same. But over the last 3.5 years, he's managed that. But I watch him like a hawk. Like, how much have you eaten today? Have you gone out and tried to exercise? You need to be outside. You need to talk to someone besides me. Like, so those are kind of examples, like, as you think about it. And if you are caring for a child with a disability, let's go there for a sec. If you are a parent who's caring for a child with a disability, as they age, one of my favorite people who had a daughter, she was on our podcast. We had actually had 2 episodes with her. Janet Brennan. She was a huge advocate. Her daughter had disabilities, and we had 2 episodes before she turned 21 and after she turned 21. And because the care that you provide to a youth or a young person with disabilities versus what does care look like when they turn 18 or 21, actually after their IEP, and services stop, that's the thing. It's very different. Life is very different. And how is that role? How does that shift? How do you allow for them to have a level of independence after you've been caring so tightly for them? That's hard. Those are 2 really good episodes talking about for someone with disabilities.
Beautiful. Wow. Love it.
I'm very passionate about caregiving, as you can tell.
No. These are the very, very important information. I can say that we must discuss all this so openly that it doesn't just feel like that why I am in this mess, why I am the one who is like living my entire life alone, and then I'm just working for someone, and I'm just giving all my time, energy. So acknowledging this is so important. So whoever will be watching right now, they'll be like, "Oh my God, I can see that there are people who are like, they are there, they are out there, they're working, they're doing everything, as well as they are a caregivers as well. And how I can balance it, this is the live example. I see it from Natalie. So beautifully explained. This is what we need today.
Mm.
Wow.
Well,
So,
and
yeah.
as you're thinking about this, 7 out of 10 caregivers work full-time or part-time. So people who are out there, yeah. And so people who are out there who are thinking, how can I support caregivers? So November is National Family Caregivers Month, but that doesn't matter. That's like National Veterans Remembrance Month. Like, remember these people every day.
Right.
Demonstrate kindness towards them.
Yeah.
And, you know, for a lot of people, it's why we started, JJ and I started a business called Care Forward, because, and this is like a technology platform that connects individuals in need with volunteers and partners who contribute time, talent, or resources. So this goes to the individual in need and to the caregiver. But the reason we started this was because caregivers are really not great at telling people what they want, okay, and what they need. And when we had to transition mom to skilled nursing, we had all these items that we couldn't give away, donate, or sell. And we knew that there had to be people out there who could use these items, that I'd be able to say, hey, I can help you. I'll give them to you. Because it wasn't about the money. It was never about the money. It's about kindness towards your neighbor who may even be a stranger. And, you know, for JJ and I, we are such proponents. We believe no matter what you see in the news, we are so much more alike and connected and unified than the world would have us be told. You and I are so much more alike in our similarities than we are different. And so for us, this gives people the opportunity to say, this is what I need. And for someone to say, I can do that. I can step up, because other care is the best form of self-care you will ever have. If that feeling when you help another person and you see gratitude and thanks, if you could bottle that up, it would be the newest addiction for everyone, because it feels so good to help another person, even for 5 minutes. And so the way that we look at it, if you're out there and you know a caregiver, and here's the thing, you may not, they probably don't even self-identify as a caregiver. If they are caring for another human being, any relationship, because sometimes caregivers aren't related, blood related. Look, if you know them, think about something that could help them. You don't even have to ask. You could just say, I'm going to drop off pizza. I'm going to drop off dinner for you. Hey, can I come over and mow your yard? I've got my mower out. I can do this. Hey, do you need me to run by the grocery store for you? Because yes, I know people can do grocery delivery, but there's also fees. And caregivers typically don't have a lot of resource. And a lot of caregivers, you know, again, they're working full-time or part-time, but my sister quit her job and didn't have a job and was providing full-time care for my mom. So, you know, I'm going to tell you, it's the little things. It's the kindness. Can I come over and sit with your mom for an hour or two so you can take a nap or a bath or a shower, or just go outside and feel the sun on your face? Those are the things that we all can do that cost us nothing. And yet it is priceless.
It's priceless. Very true. Beautiful. Okay. So let's talk about caregiving in general.
Sure.
What is one thing caregiving slowly takes away from a woman on a daily life? If we see women role in caregiving, if a parent or somebody in their family, they have some kind of disease or something they are struggling with,
Sure.
that's a very, very different story, because now you have to have someone like 100% dedicated to them. But then there are roles in everyday life as well. We see it that mothers especially, and we see women at home, they have to take care of their parents, they have to take care of their kids. So they're like a sandwich in between. They are working
Absolutely.
throughout the day, like all the time. They have to not only, I don't even know whether they think about themselves. They just
Oh,
think
no.
about other, here, there. So just trying to understand, what does that caregiving slowly takes away from them on a very daily life?
You know, I'll say this, caregiving is predominantly women. And that is also because of our society's role and how they see women and what our role is supposed to be, both culturally and general kind of societal pressures. Think about the 50s, where women were expected to stay at home, and then women started
Yeah.
going into the workplace. And then women's roles didn't change in the home, They just added workplace to the home responsibilities.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
I think that's really important to understand. I also want to give a shout out to my 40% of caregivers are also men. And my husband was, he and his brothers helped care for his mom because there was no daughters. And so although she pushed back on them because she didn't want them to have to, but from a female perspective, because it is female dominated, we call that for what it is. I think that what it does is it creates role confusion. And that's where, and you have a loss of identity and you're not sure of who you are, what you like. You don't even remember what you like at this point because you're so focused at some point on being this caregiver role shifts to the forefront. And that's where I said I didn't feel like a wife. I don't feel like a daughter at times. My role is I feel like a parent to my mom at times because I'm saying, Mom, let's not do this. Mom, let's try this instead. These are things that I would not have ever thought that I would have a conversation with my mom about, or we're going to do this, or I'm making this decision on your behalf. We weren't raised that way. We were always look to your parents to give you guidance and
Yeah.
support. And nobody talks about this is how it goes. And I think part of what we have missed and what we lost, Bruce Perry is one of my favorite. He's a clinical psychologist and he's just amazingly wow human being. But he talks about that we are built for relationship and that if you think about how we lived 250,000 years ago, we lived in tribes. We lived in tribes and we lived in multi-generational families. And that's how children learned what the roles were based on age. And as we have advanced from a technology standpoint, we have lost that. And so we live in our individual houses and you don't see multi-generational families, especially in Western civilization. You see it in other cultures where, of course, they're going to live together. I mean, my sister-in-law is Hispanic and lived with 15 other of her siblings and family members. And it's totally normal. And I'm like, how do you live with 15 people? And she's like, how do you not? Like everybody has their part and everybody's doing their role. And that's where, with our advancements in technology, we have become more disconnected. And so through this, as caregiving then, so kind of going back to that for how it impacts us as women, caregiving can be very isolating. And which results in loneliness, which results in depression, which then results in all these kind of thinking errors of like, I'm not doing good enough. I could do more. I am a failure because I felt that way. And I'm like, I'm a very successful woman. And I felt like I could not do enough things. And I would say I was a crappy caregiver. I would say I'm the only one who would argue with a cancer patient. Nope. There's lots of other people who argue with people who are sick because you get pushed to this point. And that's the part that's scariest is that sometimes you don't recognize yourself and you have to say, I'm not that person. And that is a first sign for, hey, I think I'm getting burned out. I think I need to step back because when I don't recognize myself any longer, and that doesn't even count I don't go to doctor's appointments for a couple of years because I'm so focused on his doctor's appointments. I don't take care of myself the way I need to. I don't eat healthy the way I need to. I don't move the way I need to. Those are all your signs of when I don't spend time with my friends. I don't do hobbies and activities that I enjoy. Those are the signs that you need to make a change and that you need to look a little inward. And that is not selfish, not at all. Because you can't pour from an empty well. And so if you don't do the things to rejuvenate yourself, which means, and caregivers really stink at this, you have to tell people what you need. You have to tell people, I could use this help. I could use this help. Even though I know it's faster for me to do it, I need to allow the people to, because otherwise I'll never have any help. And then I start like, well, nobody understands. Poor pitiful me. And I start swimming in a pool of just like, I feel so bad for myself. And the reality is you really just don't have time for that. And it's not healthy. And then you'll start having health issues. So those are like little things that I would say, like to listeners, like think about this or think about that. Are you experiencing those feelings and emotions? And are you experiencing like you walk in and you're just resentful? Like you look at that person and you're like, I'm just going to walk outside and I'm not going to come back. And there's times that you feel that way. I did. I would walk around New York City when I needed a break because I felt so overwhelmed. And I train on regulation. I train on teaching people like deep breathing and what are the things that you can do to help keep you regulated so that you don't lose it. But in the moment when you're in the middle of it, I'm like, there were moments I'd just walk around the city around a 4 block area because my husband was always nervous because we're from Virginia. I'd walk around this area and I'd be like, I could be Sarah Jessica Parker from Sex and the City. And I just kind of sashay a little bit. I'd sashay, just whatever. And in my mind, I'd sing a song in my head, or I'd call my sister and talk to her and be like, oh, this is what I see. Or I'd pretend. And then that would make me feel a little bit better. I'd be
Right.
outside because think about it. I'm in the sun. I'm getting
Mm.
fresh air. I'm moving my body. I'm thinking about something that's not cancer. Because it wasn't about my husband. It's the cancer. She was always there. And then I'd go back and I'd feel refreshed. I'm like, okay, let's take some meds.
You were talking about a little bit about you know how to regulate your body and your
Oh
mind.
yeah.
Share a little bit
Yeah,
how
yeah.
you can use that.
So there's all kinds of things you can do to help with stress. You can, and we're always going to say, people be like, "Oh, I'd love a week off, a day off, 4 hours off, 5 minutes off." The reality is you can have those micro moments of self-care throughout the day. And I hate the word self-care because it's pretty overused, but what are the things that help you get kind of rebalanced and recentered where you feel like I
Mm.
can take a break? So I'm going to tell you, even if you were sitting right here and you're listening to this, even if you were to close your eyes and you were taking a breath, I love 4-7-8. You take in a breath for 4 seconds and you always want to close your eyes. You'll take in a breath for 4 seconds and then you'll hold it for 7 and then you'll blow out audibly out of your mouth, like for 8 seconds. If you do that 3 to 4 times in a row, you don't want to do it any longer than 60 seconds to, 100 to 2 minutes. That is a way for your autonomic nervous system to kind of really kind of reset, and your stress response system, excuse me, to reset. You can do things where you're doing things with your hands. So you're just really think about what you're focusing, but you're breathing you're breathing alongside of the movements. So I'll even build a church, or do your fingers go in and out, like breathing out in and then breathe out and then go to the next one and go out. And I've got my hands pushed together for those who are listening, holding like a prayer hands where you're putting them together and you're just moving each finger. So I've got my pinkies out and putting them back together. And I'm taking a breath out, or taking a breath in and taking a breath out. But you can also do things like drink water. Sounds so weird. Like drink something, drink water, hydrate. You probably aren't drinking enough water anyway.
Right.
Take a step outside and just take a deep breath in. You can also do visualization and think about a moment that made you really happy. And it would be like walking you through it. Like, can you smell, like if you went to the ocean, can you smell the salt in the air? Can you feel the grains of sand on your feet as you're pushing them back and forth? And the water's coming towards you. And oh, it's colder than I thought. Like you're revisualizing where you're at. And if you think about it, and I can hear the waves in my ears right now. Like I
Mm.
feel the waves coming to me and the pressure of it and then coming back out and watching my feet sink a little bit more. Like if you think about that, you can think about that and visualize being in somewhere. Or if you're in the mountains, can you smell the pine cones?
Mm.
Can you hear the birds? Can you feel the sun? Like anywhere that brings you joy, you can even do some visualization and you're just sitting there. There's all kinds of things on YouTube that is regulating. There's all kinds of videos that can walk you through. So if you looked up stress relieving strategies, that's an easy kind of way to put it. That would be great. And this is what my husband does. He brings me water. Like I've
Okay.
looked off to the side and I pause. My husband walks in, he takes care of me. I'm telling you, he's a better caregiver than me. But you can go on YouTube and you can look up, there's videos all over the place, and it's for children, it's for adults, it's for anything. Because remember, we all have our autonomic nervous systems, and how do we combat and get us centered so that we're not way too high or not way too low, that we're in this really sweet spot. There's more formal words, but I'm going to just say this is your sweet spot. Get to center. What are the things that you do that make you feel good? I'm a big fan of driving. I like to drive and listen to music. and I will sing like I'm on The Voice. I am not that great of a singer, but in my mind, I am. So hopefully those are some good strategies for folks.
Oh, these are amazing. Yes, yes, beautiful. I'm going to start trying this because sometimes it gets so overwhelmed. So these small little things that we actually tend to forget these things. It's
Yeah.
just like, yeah, we keep working, working. We know we have our water bottle right there, but then we can't even just drink it because we are so occupied in our mind.
We're moving so fast. And here's the thing, you don't need to be a caregiver to use these strategies. These are strategies that you can use at any time. So when you're feeling off center and the normal is dysregulated, when you're not feeling at your best, or when you feel upside down and you can feel it, you know your signs. Your body will always tell you when you're upside down. When I feel put on the spot, my ears get red. My hands, I can feel my hands. I can clench some of my fingers when I know that I'm like, ooh. And so I start doing this, and this actually is regulating for me. When your hands get clammy or you suddenly get hot, you know your tells. Your body will always tell you before your mind knows it. Your body tells you when you are starting to get dysregulated, your heart rate increases. And so think about those things. You can, before you go into a difficult conversation, before you go into a meeting and you've just gotten bad news, I'm going to tell you, before you approach another human being, because they will match. They will match what you're feeling. Think about how many people, you're going into a meeting and somebody is not like Debbie Downer, like, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm dreading this. You know what? Today I'm not going to dread it. We're going to have a good day. And I'm going to visualize that. And I'm going to take a couple of deep breaths before we get started. And I'm going to say, not today, Satan. And so, because I infuse humor into a lot of it. And
Yeah.
so I think it's healthy. And so I'm going to tell you, do these strategies anytime that you're going into something that you feel like your stomach hurting. Here's your warning sign. Like, oh, my stomach's hurting. I'm nervous about this. What is my body trying to tell me that my brain is not caught up yet?
Yeah, no, definitely we should listen to our body. Yeah, it gives us indication. That's when everything start to get disbalanced because we ignore all these small little things that our body indicates.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as you already mentioned that how overwhelming it is for all the caregivers. They're rushing in their mind, their body, they're like everywhere. So the one aspect that they deal with is the doctors
Hmm.
and the system as a whole.
Hmm.
So, what is one very smart thing a caregiver should do that can help them, with while dealing with doctors and the system as a whole?
So there's a couple of things I would tell you from a system standpoint. We, Dr. Guy Mittal and I talk about the wallpaper phenomenon kind of idea, that caregivers are not seen when they go to doctor's appointments. And because our system is set up so that it is client driven, it is individualized. And so CPT codes, which are billing codes, are based on the encounter with the person that is the primary patient. And I'm going to tell you, I never allow for my husband to go to appointments by himself because he's in a state of fight, flight, or freeze. So he has memory issues. Just understand, when a person is going in for procedures and things like that, that can
Right.
be hard on them. And you should always have a second person, if you can do that, to listen, but also to ask questions on your behalf, to ask clarifying questions. Do not be wallpaper. You demand, like, I'm going to tell you, I've had physicians walk in on my husband before and not acknowledge me. And I make sure that I have my voice heard, that they understand. And when he says things that are not accurate, because we're good Southerners and he doesn't ever want to seem like he's complaining, like he could have just thrown up before he came to the doctor's appointment. They'd be like, hey, Mr. Handy, how are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm fine. And I'm like, no, you're not. And so it's not to be ugly. It's not to be contradictory, but it is for accuracy, because the caregivers are the ones who are actually impacting the clinical outcomes. And that's what our system seems to forget. The doctors don't go home. The nurses don't go home. If there's home health care, they're only in your home. Are they in your home for 30 hours a week? If you're lucky, are they in your home and they're doing check-ins once a week for an hour or two? There are 256 hours in a week. I'm
Right.
there for all of them. And so I think that's very important to understand, that you have a role on the team. You have a voice, and understanding that the person you're caring for may worry that if you say something, because this is also a cultural thing, this is an age thing, that they will make the doctor angry. And I'm like, yeah, good try. We're paying them. Don't forget that. We pay them, and they are not God. They
Yeah.
are people who went to school, and they are flawed as
Yeah.
like we are. We hope that they're just less flawed in the area that we need them to be. And
Yeah.
so that's going to be super important. I'm going to tell you, stay organized, because I took copious notes of everything, and the doctors were always shocked because I knew every medication my husband was on and at what time and at what quantity and everything. But I did not use technology the way that I could have. I did a lot of paper. This is my favorite. I'm a notebook person. I'll be 50 years old, so I'm old school. I use probably technology a little bit less than I normally would in my everyday professional side of the house. And so, but I took copious notes so I could go back and dated them. And I always had my own notebook just for him, just for him. So we knew what was stated by one physician, and because things can get a little squirrely. And then you've got apps out there for that. And so AARP has the Age Tech Collaborative, and that is a great place to find out about technology that is supportive to caregivers. There are apps out there that help you stay organized and keeping your doctor's appointments beyond, the healthcare systems like Epic. You can go to Epic, and that's what most of the big hospitals use. And big practices use. That's their electronic health record. And so sort of, but the reality is that's not actually what you're looking for. You're looking for an app that you may need your POA documentation. You may need certain types of documents, and it can all be stored in one place so that it's easy for you to get to. And then there's technology that helps you as a caregiver that allows you to leave and be able. So like my mom has a button that she can push. The whole, like when we were younger, probably way before you were born, there was the, oh no, I've fallen and I can't get up, and there's the button that you can push. Well, there's buttons, and there's wrist bracelets, and there's technology that can be in your house now that you can interact with so much easier. And I'm going to say, don't be afraid of the technology. Don't be afraid of that technology, but don't get so invested in it that you start to rely on it so much that you start kind of like lose a little bit. You're like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm so focused on the technology, I'm missing kind of the purpose of what it was meant to help me to do. And
Yes.
so make sure that you find the right balance for you. And I'm going to tell you, whether you text message or whether you use notebooks, it doesn't really matter. It's what works for you, that is your system, that is helpful. And I'll do one other plug real quick that I really like. I use a program called the Caring Bridge. It's caringbridge.org. When my husband was diagnosed, I was sending over 30 text messages to 30 different group text messages, trying to keep people updated on how Jason was doing. And the reality is that became my job. So that's what I mean by don't get focused on the wrong things.
Yeah.
And so a friend of mine said, you should use the Caring Bridge. It's free because it's a nonprofit. They take donations. But if you go onto Caring Bridge, you can look at Jason Handy. I'm just shamelessly put it out there, people. I had 50 entries. So we started the Caring Bridge, and we invited the people that we knew that we wanted to share the information to it. And that was the way that I communicated what was going on. I could do one post and tell everybody, and they could support me. They could do whatever, but my job was not to keep them up to date at that
Yes.
point, and not focus on my husband and not focus on myself. And I will say this, and we talked about hope a little bit at the beginning. I am a very faithful person, and I always wonder how people get through these kind of crises and challenges without God, regardless of my Muslim friends, my Jewish friends, my Christian friends. It doesn't matter for me to have God. For me, is faith, and without faith, and you don't have hope. You have got to have these things, and so it's very lonely. And so sometimes the only person you have to talk to is God. For me, our prayers are always answered. They may not be answered the way we want, but our prayers are always answered. And a part of it is just being able to have that really authentic conversation where you can really be true, because he always knows what we're hearing. And so for those of you who are faithful individuals, we were not I would say that we were not as connected with God as we were until when he got diagnosed, and we started praying together at night. We prayed before all the things, and we would have never done that. It actually, that faith and that center, like God serving as our center to help us get through this, which gave us hope, was what really, really got us through. And so find the thing that allows you to be centered and be your most authentic self.
That's so important.
Mhm.
That if we have someone, we know that there is a higher energy which is protecting us and there, which
Yeah.
is there. They're just listening. It just makes all the difference.
Mhm.
And I have noticed in my life as well. Like that that little hope and faith, it just helped me take one step further than what I am like comfortable with. So
Yeah.
this is not just with, and during these moments, the one that you are facing right now, for all the caregivers, this little small faith changed the way we start to look the world, because now we know that there is hope and we can expect out of someone, and
Yeah.
then there is a peace of heart, and then the world is beautiful because
Yeah.
everything is being taken care because we have surrendered ourselves. So
Surrender is the right word, because I'm going to tell you, I was going to say sometimes you have to, he says, you know, don't give me your yoke. Give me your burdens. It is heavy. I
mhm.
have, let me do that for you. And I'm going to tell you, there are times, because again, I am a control freak. I am in charge of a lot of things, and I'm so in charge. And that was the hardest thing as a caregiver, as such a type A personality. I needed the control. I needed it to be certain ways because that was the only thing that felt safe and secure, is that control. And sometimes when you can give that to God, or you can put that out into the universe and be like, I
Mm,
can't control this, and I'm going to give myself permission to release it, to surrender that. That is the most freeing feeling. And you can feel the weight lifted off your shoulders. You
mm,
really can. And it's hard to do. It is
mm.
hard to do because we want to think that we're in control, and we are
Yeah,
just not. We are
yeah.
just moving through life. And when God doesn't give you the answers that you want, I mean, we were going through this is interesting. So we're
Mm,
going through this active treatment with Jason, and we knew that if everything, if it was gonna work, it would work in the 10 days. And then they would do this test, and they would tell us if he's going to need 35 more radiations, or if we can stop at 15. Okay.
okay.
And at the same time, a friend of mine had been going through cancer in Virginia, and he had tried so many things, and he was so sick. And I prayed for him like I prayed for my husband, because I believe in prayer. And my husband had a fantastic, amazing outcome. And on the same day that we got the news that his body had responded to it and we'd only have 5 more radiations, 35,
Wow.
he passed away. He lost his battle with cancer. And so it's this bittersweet, like, why does God choose to do certain things and not? And I just look at it, and I always try to say, what am I supposed to learn from this? What
Yeah.
am I taking away from this? And that doesn't mean you have to go start a company. Doesn't mean you have to go start a podcast. But what is
Mm,
it that you're supposed to do with this? What are you supposed to learn from this lesson? Because we have lessons throughout our lives. It's just right now it feels so acute. It
mm.
feels so obvious. Like, why are you putting this in my face right now? And the answer is, you're always faced with these challenges. It's just your resilience and how you've dealt with it in the past. But this will push you. This will push you.
Oh, very true. It's so important that we have faith, and also because when we surrender, one thing, because now that we are only focusing on the things that we can control and not on those things which is out of our control, we are saving so much energy as well. So that's the point as well, that if you want to save your energy, just surrender and you'll see that half of the thing is already gone from your
Yeah.
head. So, one thing I really want to talk to you, Natalie, about is because based on what your family is working in collaboration, they're working so beautifully as a caregiver. But then there are families who, as soon as they have some crisis in their family, they start to fight, they pull apart. We briefly talked about it earlier. But then in those moments, you might have encountered families like that, or you might have some example. What do you suggest families like this, how they should deal with these things? Because ultimately, this is something we have to face, even though we fight, even though we pull away or break down, but then still we have to face this. And but then what are your suggestions, that what should the family do, or how to deal with this, if any one person is ready to come out
Yeah.
and start?
So this is a tough one because there's a number of things that you can do, and this is not easy. And guys, this happens it's more common than people get along. Okay.
Mhm.
And so it's more common for people to argue, and especially around money,
Yeah.
because you have to understand what the personal motivations are
Mm.
and what happened in the past. Why is this person responding this way? You have to look at yourself, and then you have to understand that you can't control your sibling. And
Mm.
just because they're blood means nothing. It really does. So what can they do? It is really being able to say, and this takes a lot. This takes a whole lot. And this may be that you want a clinician or a facilitator to help you with having the conversation with a family if you're just having a lot of like breakdowns.
Mm.
But there's a lot of things. It's starting the conversation before the crisis begins. So if you are siblings, you should have this conversation. If you are a family, if you are a solo child who is going to be caring for your parents, have the conversation now about what they want. There are books out there. I've got several that I can give you recommendations for, but have the conversations now so that you know exactly what that person wants, because then you're not making the decisions. You're simply respecting the decisions that they want. When that is the kindest thing a care recipient can do for you, is tell you what they want and not put you into a place where you have to make medical decisions for them. You may not agree with the medical decisions, but you should honor what they want. The other
Mm.
piece of it is there are caregiver consultants out there, very similar, that can help navigate the system and can help navigate between in families and helping with family dynamics, can help say, hey, let's think about this, or okay, we need to put this out in the ballpark for a second because it's getting a heated discussion. Let's go to another topic area. We'll come back to that. Let's think about the why and why you're feeling this way. So there are books out there that help with navigation. But if you didn't pre-plan, like we didn't pre-plan with my husband or my mom, because you just don't expect to get cancer when my husband's 55 and I'm 46. Like you didn't expect mom to get diagnosed with Parkinson's at 48, and 52 was early onset at 48. But if you didn't do that, then it's not too late to start. Take it
Yeah.
one bite at a time. Let's
Mm.
talk about this. What are the most pressing things that we need to have happen? The thing that I'm going to tell everyone to do right now is, if you don't have a POA, a medical power of attorney, a fiscal or financial power of attorney, or general power of attorney, if you don't have your will, you are making a mistake. You are just making a mistake. Stop putting it off. And I'm talking about, I don't care if you're 20 years old, just don't
Mm.
put it off. There are way too many dastardly things that happen, and your loved ones need to know exactly what you want. And then this is how I want this done. This is what happens if I'm incapacitated. Do those things for yourself and for your loved ones. And then really sit down and have conversations with family members. And they're going to be difficult conversations. They're uncomfortable.
That's perfect. So, one last message for every woman in general, Natalie.
One last message. You can do this. You're not alone. You are not alone, and there's so many resources out there for you.
Mm.
And there's so many people who've been caregivers. Start talking about it. Talk about what's going on. Ask people for help. Put it out there. There is no shame in asking for help. It does not make you weak. And so I was telling someone the other day, I'm like, especially in rural areas, we'd give you the shirt off our back, but we wouldn't tell you we'd need one. So make sure, do your part and let people help you. Allow people to help you. There's so many
Yeah,
pieces of advice, but really you're not alone, and allow others to help you.
beautiful. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you so much for your time, your energy, and the
Yeah.
knowledge that you shared with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're most welcome.
If this conversation touched you, remember this: caregiving isn't rare, it isn't random, It isn't someone else's story. It's happening in almost every household you know. Maybe in yours, maybe in someone you love, maybe inside a woman who looks strong but is breaking silently. Natalie reminded us of something powerful today. You cannot carry everyone and forget yourself. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and you are not weak for asking for help. You are human. If you are a caregiver and if you are the emotional backbone of your home, if you are the woman who always shows up no matter what, you deserve care too. You deserve rest. You deserve support and you deserve to be seen. Share this episode with one woman who is caring too much. Let her know she's not alone. Let her know her strength is noticed. Let her know she matters. This is Magnetic Women Monday, and I will see you in the next episode. Until then, take care of yourself the way you take care of everyone else. Stay magnetic.